Did you know that humanity has officially begun its journey to live beyond Earth? Not in some distant sci-fi future, but right now? With NASA's Artemis program, the plan isn't just to visit the moon again. It's to stay, to build, and ultimately to turn places like the moon and even Mars into the next home for human civilization. And this is only the beginning. In this video, we're diving into the 10 upcoming Artemis missions that could transform us from a single planet species into a multi-planet civilization. From building a space station around the moon, to landing humans on its surface and laying the groundwork for Mars, this is the roadmap that could redefine our future forever. So let's start. Artemis I. Artemis I launched without a single astronaut on board, but make no mistake, this mission carried the weight of an entire generation's dreams. Powered by the massive space launch system, the Orion spacecraft rose into the sky, leaving Earth behind. Inside Orion, no humans, only sensors, mannequins, and instruments, silently collecting data. As it traveled beyond the moon, deeper than any human-rated spacecraft had gone before, it proved something critical. We still knew how to reach deep space, but when Orion returned to Earth, engineers noticed something unexpected. The heat shield, the very layer protecting astronauts during re-entry, had suffered more damage than predicted. It was a warning, a reminder that space doesn't forgive mistakes. And yet, Artemis I did something even more important. It reignited belief. Across the world, millions watched the launch, realizing that deep space exploration was no longer a memory of the past, but a reality of the present. Artemis II. Artemis II was the moment everything changed. For the first time in over half a century, humans were preparing to leave low Earth orbit and journey toward the moon. 4 astronauts stepped into Orion. Their mission? Not to land, but to go far enough to prove we could. As the engines ignited, the world watched. This wasn't just another launch. It was a return to deep space. They traveled around the moon, witnessing its far side, a view only a handful of humans in history had ever seen. Earth in the distance looked fragile, small, alone. And in that moment, Artemis II reminded humanity why exploration matters. It wasn't just about reaching new places. It was about understanding our place in the universe. And for the astronauts on board, it was deeply personal, a journey into the unknown, carrying the legacy of those who came before them. Artemis III. Artemis III is currently planned to launch in 2027, the mission that would put boots back on the moon. But space exploration doesn't follow scripts. Delays began to stack up. The development of the Starship HLS faced challenges. Spacesuits weren't ready, and Orion's heat shield raised concerns. NASA made a decision, not driven by ambition, but by responsibility. Artemis III would no longer attempt a landing. Instead, it became something just as important, a proving ground. Astronauts tested docking systems, validated technologies, refined every detail needed for survival on the lunar surface. Some called it a delay, but in reality, it was preparation for success. Because in space, rushing forward doesn't lead to victory, precision does. And this moment proved something critical. Exploration is not about speed, it's about sustainability. Artemis IV. Artemis IV is expected to launch around 2028, and it represents a major turning point in humanity's return to the moon. Because it is not just about going back, but about building a permanent presence there. And this mission is closely tied to the development of the Lunar Gateway, which will act as an orbital space station around the moon, serving as a staging point, laboratory, and transfer hub for future lunar and deep space missions. And in this mission, astronauts will first travel to Lunar Gateway, where they will dock in lunar orbit, prepare systems, and transfer into a lunar landing vehicle before beginning their descent toward the moon's surface. And as the lander slowly descends through the silence of space, the gray and rugged lunar surface grows larger and more real with every passing second. Until finally, the engines fire to slow the descent and the spacecraft gently touches down. And at that moment, when human boots step onto the moon again, it is not the same as Apollo. Because this time, it is not a brief visit, but the beginning of long-term exploration and settlement. And astronauts are no longer just collecting samples or proving capability, but actively laying the groundwork for habitats, infrastructure, and sustained operations that could last for years. And as they look back at Earth, hanging in the black sky above the lunar horizon, they see a fragile blue world that feels both distant and deeply connected to their presence. And in that quiet moment, it becomes clear that humanity has crossed a threshold, because they are no longer just explorers visiting another world, but pioneers building the foundation of a second home beyond Earth. And Artemis IV marks the beginning of that permanent chapter in human space history. Artemis V. Artemis V turned ambition into action. More astronauts arrived. More equipment landed. Structures began to take shape. Temporary camps evolved into functional outposts. Astronauts stayed longer, worked harder, and began unlocking the moon's secrets. The idea of a lunar base was no longer science fiction. It was under construction. And with each mission, the moon felt a little less distant and a little more like home. The silence of the lunar surface was now filled with activity. Machines working, experiments running, humans adapting. Artemis VI. By the time Artemis VI began, the moon was no longer unfamiliar. Astronauts lived there for extended periods. Habitats provided shelter. Power systems sustained life. Communication networks connected them back to Earth. But living on the moon wasn't easy. Extreme temperatures, radiation, isolation. Every challenge pushed technology, and human endurance further than ever before. And through those challenges, humanity learned not just how to survive, but how to adapt. They developed routines, built communities, and turned survival into normalcy. Artemis VII. Artemis VII introduced a revolutionary idea. Don't bring everything from Earth. Use what's already there. Astronauts began extracting water ice from the lunar poles. They converted it into drinking water, oxygen, even fuel. The moon started supporting human life. For the first time in history, humanity was living off-world using local resources. This wasn't just exploration anymore. This was independence. And with independence came confidence. Confidence that humans could survive far beyond Earth. Artemis VIII. With Artemis VIII, the moon became more than a base. It became a laboratory. Astronauts conducted experiments impossible on Earth. They studied the origins of the solar system, observed deep space without atmospheric interference, tested technologies for future interplanetary travel. Each discovery answered old questions and raised new ones. The moon, once seen as barren and lifeless, became one of the most valuable scientific locations in human history. Artemis IX. Artemis IX shifted the focus outward. The moon had served its purpose as a proving ground. Now it became a launch pad. Technologies designed for Mars were tested here. Long-duration habitats, advanced propulsion concepts, human endurance over extended missions. Everything pointed toward one destination, Mars. And for the first time, that destination felt within reach. The lessons learned on the moon would determine the success of humanity's next giant leap. Artemis X. Artemis X wasn't just a mission. It was a turning point in human history. By this stage, everything that once sounded like science fiction had become reality. A fully operational lunar base stood on the moon, not as an experiment, but as a permanent outpost of human life. the Lunar Gateway had evolved into a vital hub, seamlessly connecting missions, crews, and cargo between Earth, the Moon, and beyond. Humans had not only reached space, we had learned how to live there, from sustaining life in harsh extraterrestrial environments to building infrastructure far from Earth. We had mastered survival beyond our home planet. Artemis X symbolized something far greater than technological success. It marked a shift in identity. For the first time ever, humanity was no longer a species confined to one world. We had stepped beyond Earth, not as visitors but as settlers. And when you really think about it, this isn't just NASA's story, it's ours. For the first time in human history, we're not just looking up at the sky and wondering what's out there. We're actually building a future there. The Artemis program isn't just about rockets, missions, or technology. It's about taking the first real steps toward becoming a civilization that lives beyond Earth. Today, it's the Moon. Tomorrow, it's Mars. And one day, who knows how far we'll go. So if this journey excites you as much as it does me, make sure to stay tuned, because the next chapter of humanity is already being written, and we're just getting started. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content.